the ancestral wisdom guiding our modern leadership. The leaders of tomorrow won't be MBAs or managers, they'll be alchemists. Guided by ancestral wisdom, empowered by the power matrix of SSQ, EEQ, and AIQ, these leaders will blend ancient rhythms with artificial intelligence. What happens when the fire circle meets the algorithm? That's the future of leadership. What if the secrets to modern leadership weren't found in business schools, but in the fire circles of our ancestors? What if the way forward isn't only forward, but backward, to voices we've silenced, stories we've forgotten, rhythms we've abandoned? And what if the leaders who thrive in the age of AI chaos are not the fastest technologists, but the ones most rooted in timeless wisdom? Today, I want to argue something radical. The most powerful breakthroughs for our future leaders won't come from Silicon Valley or Davos, but from ancient scrolls, tribal councils, and spiritual traditions that carried civilizations for millennia. The MBA may be dead, but the Elder's Compass is alive. Framing the crisis. From global to local, let's start with the problem. Leadership today is exhausted. From Davos to your local council meeting, leaders are burned out, trying hard. Globally, we see leaders making short-term moves, quick profits, quarterly gains, poll-tested sound bites. Locally, we feel the consequences: stressed managers, fractured communities, young leaders walking away before their time. The global feeds the local, and the local feeds the global. The algorithm that rewards clickbait in New York destabilizes a mayor's council in Nairobi. A CEO's decision in Tokyo ripples to farmers in Peru. And here's the paradox. At no other time have we had more information about leadership, yet at no other time have leaders felt more lost. So, we need something deeper. And I believe the answer is in a phrase I call ancestral harmonization, retrieving the wisdom traditions that balanced power, people, and planet long before we invented MBAs. The failure of the modern model: look around. Tech leaders who can code but cannot connect. Politicians who can win votes but cannot hold a vision. Executives who can scale profits but cannot sustain communities. That is not leadership. That is managerial chess. And it's why burnout, ethical collapse, and short-termism dominate headlines. Ancient echoes. What we forgot now, let's travel back. Our ancestors did not have MBAs. They did not run corporations. They did not have quarterly earnings calls. But they did have something more powerful: systems of wisdom designed to balance human ambition with natural cycles. The Iroquois Confederacy sat around the council fire in what we now call upstate New York. Imagine the scene: clan mothers choosing chiefs, elders speaking, the voices of the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, and later the Tuscarora, weaving a decision. At the heart of their law was a question that echoed before every choice: how will this affect the seventh generation to come? It wasn't metaphor. It was governance. When they agreed on treaties, when they managed forests, when they divided hunting grounds, they were binding themselves to futures they would never see. That's SSQ, sustainable intelligence in action, alive centuries before the first climate report, long before we had carbon graphs and COP summits. Now crossed the ocean. Britain, 1215. The fields of Runnymede. King John, hemmed in by barons, forced to sign the Magna Carta. It wasn't perfect, written by elites for elites, but it seeded a principle so explosive it still shapes democracies. Even a king is accountable to a law higher than his ego. Over time, that parchment grew into parliament, rights, and common law. That's leadership embedding ethical guardrails into its DNA, the essence of what we now call EEQ, Empathic Intelligence, written into policy rather than performance reviews. And then, picture the Buddhist monks. Their leadership technology wasn't offsites or quarterly retreats. It was meditation, silence, breath. They taught rulers to still the noise, to notice before reacting, to wait before striking. That's meta-leadership, not a hack to get more done, but presence, the kind of presence that can prevent the wrong war, the wrong law, the wrong word. See the pattern. Across civilizations, survival didn't come from bigger weapons or faster conquests. It came from intelligence disciplines, sustainable foresight, ethical empathy, embodied clarity. The Iroquois prevented the burnout of their ecosystems. The British prevented the burnout of their polity. The monks prevented the burnout of the self. 3 traditions, 3 forms of intelligence, SSQ, EEQ, and the precursor to what we now call AIQ, intelligence applied beyond the single, panicked human mind. Here's the point. These weren't soft or sentimental philosophies. They were survival technologies. They distributed responsibility across councils instead of onto one exhausted CEO. They embedded ethics into decision-making instead of bolting it on after the damage. They aligned human leadership with cycles larger than the ego, land, ancestors, unborn generations. That's why the power matrix isn't new. It's a remembering. SSQ, EEQ, AIQ. These are not buzzwords. They are upgrades of what wise civilizations already practiced when survival was on the line. And today, survival is back on the line, not just for one tribe, one monarchy, or one empire, but for the planet. Think of SSQ, sustainable intelligence. Ancient wisdom never treated leadership as ownership. The Iroquois weren't extracting value, they were stewarding forests, rivers, and futures. Leadership meant guardianship. The land wasn't theirs to burn through, it was theirs to pass on. That's sustainable intelligence, not theory, but survival. Then comes EEQ, Empathic Intelligence. Councils, kinship, the voices of many. This was governance built on listening. Clan mothers choosing chiefs. Barons holding kings to account. Elders slowing down decisions until every voice was heard. Empathy wasn't a slogan for leadership seminars. It was the operating system of survival. And now, AIQ, artificial intelligence empowering our human intelligence. Here's the twist. For the first time in history, we have machines that extend memory, pattern recognition, and scale. The monk stilled the mind, AI multiplies it. But without SSQ and EEQ guiding it, AI becomes scale without stewardship, data without empathy, a sword without a hand to wield it. This is the power matrix, not a consulting framework, not a neat diagram for a slide deck, but a bridge. A bridge between ancestral wisdom and future technology. It says, if you want to survive complexity, you can't lead with just efficiency or ego. You must harmonize sustainability, empathy, and artificial intelligence. Without that harmony, you're not leading, you're accelerating collapse. With it, you become an alchemist, transforming raw chaos into durable futures. And this isn't theory. It's already happening. Let's zoom in, global to national to local. Global, Patagonia. A company that thrives not by ignoring ancestral values, but by embodying them. Patagonia thrives not because it ignores the old ways, but because it recovers them. Its mission is not shareholder profit, but planetary guardianship. When Yvon Chouinard handed the company to a trust so all profits could protect the Earth, that wasn't disruption. That was an echo of the Iroquois seventh generation principle, thinking 7 lifetimes ahead. It's ancient survival law, now written in the language of modern business. They run on a common good model, business as guardianship, not exploitation. That's Iroquois thinking in corporate clothes. National, New Zealand. A government that rewrote law to honour Maori wisdom. Rivers and mountains recognised as legal persons, not resources. Picture that, the land standing in court with as much dignity as a citizen. That's ancient law, recoded into modern governance. Local, Finland. Classrooms without the tyranny of standardized tests. Instead, children learn empathy, presence, balance. They are not raised as workers for an economy, but as whole citizens for a society. That's not innovation, that's remembering. See the pattern. In every case, global, national, local, what works isn't a shiny new framework. It's the recovery of timeless wisdom, reframed for the modern age. The same survival technologies that kept civilizations alive are quietly keeping modern institutions from collapse. The power matrix is the map, SSQ, EEQ, AIQ, but the proof is in the stories. When leaders live these principles, they build systems that don't just work today. They last. The Council of Elders, a Wise People 2.0. Here's the vision. Imagine if every leader today had access to a Council of Elders. Not just shareholders, not just consultants, but a group that included wisdom mentors grounded in tradition, community voices grounded in empathy, AI technocrats grounded in pattern recognition. That's Council of Elders 2.0. The human wisdom keeps us ethical. The AI keeps us adaptive. The synthesis keeps us sane. This is not utopian. It's necessary. Because leadership without elders is arrogant. Leadership without AI is blind. And leadership without empathy is brutal. The path forward, a holistic paradigm, so where do we go from here? 3 steps. Cultivate inner wisdom. Ancient practices, mindfulness, ritual, reflection are not luxuries. They are leadership training. Build legacy beyond profit. Shift from what can I achieve in 5 years to what will still matter in 7 generations. Ripple outwards. Lead locally, but think globally. Every choice you make ripples into a planetary system. That's the fractal power of leadership, from global to local and local to global. This is not nostalgia. This is design. Ancient rhythms are not a retreat. They are a blueprint. So I say, forget shiny credentials. Forget endless hacks. Become an alchemist, a leader who listens like an elder, calculates like an AI, and stewards like an ancestor. That is the paradigm shift. That is how we stop being burnt-out managers of chaos and start becoming architects of legacy. Cry when needed. Connect with those you lead. Calculate with the tools we have. And never forget, the future belongs not to those who run the fastest, but to those who carry the oldest compass. If this resonates, don't just scroll. Act. Watch the next episode in this series, Emotional Alchemists, Transforming Challenges into Global Strengths with the Power Matrix. Buy the book, AIQ Savvy and AMP, EQ Shrewd Vanguard Leader. And join the waitlist for the Alchemists Academy, where we turn this philosophy into practice for executives, educators, and pioneers who refuse to be irrelevant. This is not theory. This is a call. A new curriculum. A new compass. A new leadership. The MBA is dead. Long live the new alchemists. Subscribe. Share. Like. Comment.